First question in 2 minutes. We just want you to tell Detroiters who don't know who you are, and we know you're on the city council, but who are you?
I am a husband, a father of 2 children, a son of Detroit, and a former state representative, and now serving my first term on Detroit City Council. I've dedicated my life to public service and look forward to continuing to doing that as mayor of the city of Detroit.
Why do you want to be the next mayor of the city of Detroit, and what qualifies you to lead the city, especially right now at this critical moment in our city?
Well, I think we are in a very, very vulnerable time here in the city of Detroit. I mean, we've seen a tremendous amount of growth over the past decade or so, but now in the transition of leadership, we need someone with that type of experience. And I think what separates us from other candidates in this race, we are the only candidate that has served on the state level as well as the city level. Served 2 terms as a state representative, first term as the assistant Democratic leader of the House, second term ranking Dem over House appropriations, and now on Detroit City Council. And so we're able to use that experience to continue to move this city forward. And we believe you're going to need experienced leadership for continued growth.
Absolutely. Tell Detroiters, what's the biggest difference between your administration, if you're elected mayor, and Mayor Duggan, who we've seen for 14 years now?
Yeah, I think the biggest change would be just a better connection with Lansing. Again, I think having those relationships are really important to be able to get some of the policies done that you want to push forward to help the city of Detroit and Detroiters. I know we'll be pushing forth a comprehensive tax relief plan in our administration, and very confident with the relationships that we have in Lansing, we'll be able to accomplish that, as well as other legislation that will help Detroit residents get more money back into their pockets and help to continue to stabilize our communities.
The taxes, that's a biggie, because a lot of people feel that keeps them from moving into the city of Detroit.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, when you talk to businesses, but not only businesses, our residents who are living in these neighborhoods, they let you know that their property taxes are entirely too high. Listen, we have a property tax millage over 80 mills here in the city of Detroit, and the closest city in population to us, which is Grand Rapids, they're a little bit over 40 mills. So that lets you know there's a significant gap, and we want to ensure that we are making sure that everybody in the city of Detroit is paying their fair share of taxes so we can relieve the burden on our homeowners.
Got it. So tell me this. Detroiters have seen corruption damage the city before. We've all seen it, heard about it. What systems will you put in place to ensure transparency and to assure that Detroiters can trust you?
Yeah, so I think transparency is absolutely important. This past budget cycle, as a member of the City Council, we increased funding to the Board of Ethics. I think that helps when we talk about city government and how folks operate in government, to make sure that there is no stealing, there is no nefarious activity happening. But we'll be transparent, just in the sense of we'll be very vocal about everything that we're doing. We've got an idea to create kind of a fireside chat from the mayor's office to let folks know what's happening down at City Hall, and look to do that about twice a month to connect with residents and let them know what our administration is doing. But we will hold folks accountable to the highest standards. The city of Detroit has come a long way. We cannot afford to go backwards. And a lot of that is built off trust. We don't want to deepen the apathy of our residents. We want to eliminate it.
Let's talk about education for a second. A lot of people don't want to move into the city of Detroit because of the schools. They don't have confidence sometimes in DPSCD or our charter schools. What will you do as mayor to make sure families feel that our schools will educate their children so they can go on to higher education if they want, or into a trade?
Yeah, so, folks move to communities for schools, as well as public safety and jobs, right? Being a father of 2, I really understand how education has affected the city of Detroit when you look to where you want to send your child to school. And a parent's choice is a parent's choice. Some folks send their kids to public schools, some folks send their kids to charter schools. But I think although the mayor does not control the schools, you have to have a greater, level of communication between the city of Detroit, DPSCD. We'll bridge the gap by talking to the superintendent as well as the school board and finding a way to connect our resources and programs that we have in the city of Detroit to things that they're doing. I've said I want to create the path to that leads to colleges and careers and not cages and caskets. And the way that we do that is bring in our skilled trades and start a little bit earlier, having folks and our young folks get excited, even if they're not going to college, about a possible career. But we've got to start that pipeline a little bit earlier, kind of a seed to sale concept, and get our children where we need to go. And finally, just create maybe, I don't want to say another board, but some type of commission. Again, that will allow city leaders to have a direct conversation with our board members of DPSCD as well as our superintendent to bridge that gap.
I like that line, to school instead of cages and caskets. That's a good one. If you are elected mayor, how will you ensure equity when it comes to city contracts and hiring and services, especially for Black and brown communities?
Well, we've already done it. We already started that. I just sponsored an ordinance called the procurement ordinance that passed council unanimously, which raised the threshold. At one time here in the city of Detroit, everything that goes in front of council, it would go in front of council if it was $25,000 or above. We raised that threshold to allow smaller businesses, minority businesses, to have the opportunity to contract with the city of Detroit. And so we'll continue to tweak some of those ordinances and those policies that we have. And we've got a plan to cut a lot of the red tape so we can cut more red ribbons. That is going to be what we push for. When you talk about entrepreneurship and small business here, that's got to be the opportunity for our residents that help either raise folks out of poverty, close the wealth gap, and help put money into folks' pockets so they can go back to their neighborhoods and pay their rent and pay their mortgages, and stabilize a commercial corridor. So we are going to ensure that we have a fair, equitable process, but we're going to expand that path of opportunity as much as we can.
Briefly, when was that ordinance put in place?
So this ordinance recently just passed a couple months ago. And so you are now going to see over the next few months, a lot of that fruit coming from that ordinance. Small owners, small business owners that may own T-shirts, that want to do T-shirts for the city of Detroit. At one time, you would have to go in front of council and get a full vote of council if that contract that you were competing for was $25,000 or above. And what happens when that comes is that a lot of our smaller businesses don't have the resources that they need, or they're not as large as some of these other businesses. And we saw that larger businesses were competing for smaller contracts. But now this opens it up, and it will allow for a fairer process for folks to get in the door, where the RFP process before was a bit strenuous.
Got it. How will you bring jobs to the city of Detroit and ensure Detroiters are actually the ones who get hired into those jobs that come into the city?
Well, they got that saying, if you build it, they will come. I tell folks I have been very unapologetic about development here for one reason. I believe development creates jobs. Our city enjoyed a huge population years ago because there were jobs here. There was a saying that if you can't make it in Detroit, you can't make it anywhere. So you need those jobs here. And we'll attract development by, one, eliminating a lot of the red tape that we spoke about. We're going to create a uniformed permitting process and a one-stop shop. So when you walk in there and you pull permits, okay, it's not going to take you 6 to 8 months to start a business. But we're also going to do a couple other things. You heard us talk about lowering taxes here. That's going to be a huge component of it as well. But we're going to also work to change ways that we do inspections because oftentimes, again, if you're starting off as a business, it may take you a year to get off of the ground. And so we are going to be very competitive as far as our administration, as far as our government and all the bureaucracy is concerned. But we're also going to let folks know that we want you to come here because we're an inviting place, and we're going to prepare a workforce for those type of jobs that come here so folks are already ready to go. And we'll be stern as a leader in those conversations and letting those folks know and heads of industries, we want those jobs to go to our residents that live here in the city.
But how will you address the blight that's left over for so many neighborhoods and basic city services? How will you improve them if you're elected?
I'm really glad you asked that question because it's part of our comprehensive tax relief plan that we're going to roll out. And we'll get into the details a little bit later. But we are going to implement a blight tax here. in the city of Detroit. And so if you are a business that you have not been keeping up your business and or you have not developed on your business and you're a speculator, we're not going to allow that anymore. When you look at our communities and our commercial corridors, there's a vast number of opportunities that exist. The problem is if you're a developer and you come into one of those commercial corridors, you see it's a bit spotty. Right? They're not contiguous buildings. You may buy two buildings and then the middle building a private owner owns that you can't find, and we've got to take them to court, and then it takes a 2-year process. So we're going to be able to come after them for that. But also just regular blight in our neighborhoods around our parks. We have already started that process. I had a conversation with our general services department so we can implement surveillance cameras in our parks that have become subject to illegal dumping. And we're going to crack down on that. And finally, roll out a citywide campaign, which has not been done, talking about littering, talking about keeping our streets, our neighborhoods safe, and letting folks know, whether they're in our community or they're not from our community, Detroit is not the place to dump your trash.
If you could look in that camera and you were talking to a single mom or a single dad on the city's east side, trying to keep their kids safe, trying to feed their kids, trying to keep the lights on, what would you offer them if you're elected mayor of Detroit?
Yeah, I would let them know that they are on my mind. They are at the forefront of my decision, that I want to create a path of opportunity for them as well as their children, and that they're not forgotten. And I say that because it's something that people feel sometimes. They see the growth of the city of Detroit and they wonder, is this benefiting me? And I think we've got to do a better job of connecting those dots and connecting folks to that opportunity. And I want to let them know that I'm going to fight for them. But we're also going to produce results. You know, I know we see a lot of philanthropic things happen here in the city of Detroit where folks give out backpacks, give out shoes and turkeys and things of that nature. But I'm a firm believer that here in the city of Detroit, we can build a city where folks can buy their own backpacks, where folks can buy their own turkeys, buy their own coats and hats and gloves for their kids. And we're going to create that by giving them opportunity to employment, opportunity to affordable housing, and opportunity to be able to live the type of life they want to live and they can be proud of. And that's what we're going to be focused on.
I want to make sure I didn't leave off one question. How would you bridge the divide that exists between downtown and the neighborhoods, between longtime residents and some of the newcomers who are coming into the city of Detroit? As a new mayor in the city of Detroit, there needs to be a bridge with those communities. How would you do that?
Well, first, I would say we all have to realize that we are one Detroit. We want to push the narrative out there and say that Detroit is very divided, and we all have to come together. I'm known for coalition building, whether I was working in the State House as a Democrat or a state rep, bridging the gap, working across the aisle with Republicans, which at the time was very tough, let me tell you. But we're known to build those coalitions. And one of the ways I think we do that, we're going to expand our commercial corridors here in the city of Detroit. And if folks ask, well, why is that important? I think the narrative gets created sometimes that there's a downtown versus the neighborhoods because folks come downtown. And here's the thing, there are a lot of residents that love our downtown and say, oh, this is absolutely amazing. And then they hop in their car and they drive back home in some of the main corridors they are and they say, we got a long way to go. No access to fresh groceries, no access to a pharmacy, no access to retail. So we're going to work to create a main street in every district here in the city of Detroit with vibrant commercial corridors so folks feel that progress in those areas that are adjacent to right where they live. And I think that'll help us change that narrative.
Final thoughts. If you could accomplish just one thing in your first year that would define your legacy, what would it be and why?
So I would say growing the population, and I know a lot of folks say that, it would be a tremendous feat to do in 1 year. But I'm a firm believer that, at the end of that year, if we could see, our population to continue to grow, I think we'll be in a pretty good spot. But I would say focus on that. And I know I'm cheating a little bit, but for the second thing, which is close and near and dear to my heart, and is pretty much first, but continue to lower the crime rates here in the city of Detroit. I chair our gun violence task force for the city of Detroit. I've been a proponent of the community violence intervention program, Shot Stoppers, and we want to see those rates to continue to go down, right? One homicide is one too many. One shooting is one too many. So if we can continue to drive those numbers down, I'd be happy.
So I do want to ask you, because I know you brought it up in the end, what is your strategy, though, to address gun violence, especially when it comes to young men in the city of Detroit?
You know, we are going to have a collaborative strategy. You know, we have seen in the city and made tremendous progress, some of the lowest homicide rates and fatal and non-fatal shooting rates in over 30 years. As the chair of the gun violence task force here in the city of Detroit, community violence intervention has been a huge part of lowering those rates. So we've got to expand our CVI programs. I recently got in the budget an additional $3 million here so we can expand CVI. And right now we are fighting for funding from Lansing for the Public Safety Trust Fund, which will deliver $18 million to the city if passed. So we want to be able to use that in collaboration with DPD to be able to make our community safer. But we also have to do programming. We've got to talk about the social determinants of health that lead to gun violence here in the city of Detroit. And we use our CVI programs to go into those neighborhoods, mentor some of those young folks, whether they're men or women that are involved in violence, and get them to put those guns down. That is going to be, you know, a strategy that we are going to continue to push for, that we're going to continue to fund. And then I'm very hopeful that we'll be successful.
CVI?
CVI, Community Violence Intervention.
Okay. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want the voters to know?
So I would just say, you know, we are hoping that the voters in this election really look at the candidates and choose experience. Again, we are here in a pivotal moment in the city of Detroit that is going to define what Detroit is going to look like for the next 20 years. And you're going to need somebody that's experienced, that can get things done in Lansing. You're going to need somebody that knows city government as well, but somebody who's pragmatic, somebody who is about bringing folks together. It is so easy to identify our differences. The tougher thing is to bring everyone together. And the way that you do that is letting folks know that you care about them. My dad had this saying growing up that sticks with me. And I always remember, he says, son, always remember that the only person you're better than is the person that you used to be. And we are going to continue to push that type of mind state and lift everybody in this city up and make sure that we create a Detroit that is for every Detroiter.